Okay, so this bone is obviously singular. This is our lower jaw, also known as the mandible. And the mandible, in addition to holding our lower row of teeth, is forming an articulation or joint between the temporal bone of the skull. So if you remember these little plates here, these represent the cartilage inside the mandibular fossa of the temporal bone. So our mandible fits into that and forms a special type of hinge joint that allows us to masticate, fancy way of saying chewing. Now this is a little bit more complicated than just being a hinge joint like our elbow. It does glide a little bit, so whenever we chew, it can create this hinging motion, but it also allows it to jut forward a little bit so that we can protract and retract our jaw. Now the mandible, if we look at it from the lateral perspective, has several bone features that I want you to be aware of. So where the teeth exit the bone are known as the alveolar processes, and the teeth are actually considered part of the digestive system, so we will talk about them, but it'll be a little bit later. There is an important joint formed between the mandible and the teeth called a gomphosis. It's a really strong type of fibrous joint that doesn't allow hardly any movement between them. You can also see the portion of the mandible that's associated with attachment to the temporal bone. So this little arm-like process is called a ramus. It sticks out kind of like an arm. Anteriorly, you have a little pointed feature called the coronoid process. Coronoid means like a horn, so it kind of looks like a horn. The mandibular notch separates the coronoid process on the anterior side from the mandibular condyle on the posterior side. Now, condyle is a word we've mentioned before, and we'll look at it again over and over as we look at other bones. But a condyle is a smooth, rounded surface where bone on bone is going to happen. Usually cartilage is on top, keeping that from being a painful interaction. But the mandibular condyle is the smooth posterior process that fits into the mandibular fossa of the temporal bone. Anteriorly on the mandible, so this is the body. Where the teeth are, we're going to consider the body. You have a little opening on the left and right called the mental foramen, and just little tiny nerves come out of here and provide sensation to the anterior teeth and chin.